friends, family, world, Luke here with another video. Today I'm going to mix it up a bit and do something a bit different.
I originally filmed this to be one video, but ended up finding it was far too long for that, so decided to divide it into two. In this part, I will be talking a bit about what a Eurail pass is, the different types of passes, and some background about other rail passes, such as the Swiss pass and the Swiss half-fare card, whereas part 2 will focus on the cost breakdown.
For those of you who haven't watched, I just wrapped up a Eurotrip 2019 travel series that documented our experience traveling through various European countries over a 2-month period in the summer of 2019. We used a Eurail pass, and I kind of wanted to go through our experience about whether it ended up saving us money or not. Just a bit of background about how our particular route looked. We traveled on July 1st from London to Paris, and then Paris down to Switzerland, where we did almost a month of extensive travel around the country of Switzerland, continuing on to Austria, and then going by train back up to Paris via Frankfurt, where we then flew from Paris to the Faroe Islands for a week, and then we flew from the Faroe Islands to Copenhagen, where we did a week-long trip around Denmark with some train travel, some driving. And then at the end of our trip, we took a week-long cruise that departed and returned through Copenhagen, and we did some train travel in northern Germany during one of our stops on this cruise. As you can tell, it was a pretty extensive and not your typical trip, so if you want to know more about that trip, be sure to click on the Eurotrip 2019 playlist by clicking on the small I button at the top right of your screen, and you can follow along at any point along that trip by looking through some of the videos in that playlist. So just a bit of background about how our Eurail pass worked for us. So we paid for what's called a 2-month continuous global pass. Those are the three things that you have to consider with Eurail. One is the duration, so whether it's 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. Another consideration is whether it's continuous or not. Continuous meaning that within 1 month or 2 months or 3 months, whatever duration you purchase, that you get an unlimited amount of rides, versus some of the other passes are a certain number of days within one particular month. So we had a continuous pass, meaning that we didn't have to pick and choose which days we would apply it to. This was the most flexible one that we chose. And then finally, the global pass just means that you can use this pass in any of the 30-something countries that Eurail operates in, whereas there are other passes that are country-specific. So these are the factors that you need to consider if you are thinking about buying a Eurail pass. Also, just a point of clarification, because it is something that comes up, Eurail is for non-European residents, whereas Interrail is for European residents. We ended up paying $760 per person for this 2-month continuous global pass, meaning that we could take any train, any day of the week, as many times as we wanted, within the 30-something countries that Eurail covers, as long as it was within 2 months of us activating the pass. Also be aware that it seems like we actually got a pretty sweet discount for our 2-month continuous global pass with Eurail, whereas when I look at prices now, it's quite a bit more expensive. At the time that I'm filming this, it says that now prices for a 2-month continuous global pass are $826, and that for about what we paid, we would only be able to get a 1-month global continuous pass. So really big differences in price. So definitely something to consider. Take what I say with a grain of salt if the price for the pass is vastly different than what I'm quoting. I'll first go through our experience in Switzerland because that's where our trip essentially started, and it also happens to be where the transportation costs were by far the most expensive, along with everything else in Switzerland. As far as I know, for discount passes in Switzerland, there are 3 major things to consider. One is, like I mentioned, the Eurail or Interrail pass. 2 is what's called the Swiss pass. And then 3 is the Swiss half-fare card. I'm only going to talk about 2 of the 3. We didn't really consider the Swiss pass, but it may end up saving you money, particularly if your trip is focused very specifically on Switzerland itself. A bit of background about the Swiss half fare card. Basically, you pay a fee. At the time that we did it, it was 120 Swiss francs per pass for 1 month of discounted rates on a ton of different Swiss public transit options. Typically, it's about half off, hence the name Swiss half fare card, but don't always assume that it's half fare. Sometimes the discount is slightly different. A lot of how we determined prices was with what's called the SBB app, which is the mobile app that you can use to determine prices for the vast majority of the Swiss national trains. And this is a good place to refer to if you want to compare the cost of a full price ticket versus half fare. And it's a really well designed, really easy to use app, so I would definitely recommend using it during your time in Switzerland. The Eurail Pass covered the vast majority of the major train rides within Switzerland. Again, these national rail carriers, they were all essentially covered by Eurail. The Eurail Pass does not cover buses, the more scenic touristy train rides, such as like the Glacier Express, the Bernina Express. It does not cover all parts of that fare. And finally, it doesn't cover things like cogwheel trains, cable cars, some of those other transport options, which do take up a fair amount of your travel in Switzerland. It's a very mountainous country. They have amazing cable car and cogwheel train options to get to some really difficult to get places. So it definitely is something to consider that the Eurail Pass does not cover these. So don't get a Eurail Pass thinking that it will cover every aspect of your travel in Switzerland, because it definitely won't. But we did find that the Swiss half fare card does cover a lot of these. So that's when we had started considering getting the Swiss half fare card as well. All right, guys, that is it for this video. If you found this video useful to you, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment down in the comment section down below, and subscribe if you haven't already. See you soon. Bye.